based and customer approach. Call answer. So when you call our complaint line, somebody will receive your call, answer your call, take your information the moment you call. Obviously, if they're busy in there, they may put you on hold, but they will grab that information from you. And if we have an officer on, that call gets immediately dispatched to one of our officers. If our officers aren't on, they hold that call, and as soon as one of the officers signs on, then that call is then dispatched to that officer that signs on, and all the information is taken. It seems to be pretty well received. You know, people are able to file those complaints and aren't getting an answering machine or you know, being told that somebody will call back on Monday. So so that's been a pretty good success for us. And those guys are also monitoring our peace officers as well for safety checks. So it's kind of a tied-in program. We've got them tied into our reporting system, our RMS system. So when they receive a complaint, it's actually, there's no duplication of information. It's being inputted right into our system. So our guys don't have to create a file on top of somebody else creating a file. It's all being shared across one platform, which has been a huge success for us as well. Some of the other ways that we've taken our complaints has been report a concern. Lots of face-to-face stuff with the guys being out in the streets, people coming up to them and talking to them. I was driving the bylaw vehicle on Friday, and I got flagged over, and the guy's like, well, you're not a bylaw officer. I said, no, but I can help you anyway. So we're seeing lots of those sorts of things happen as well, just being out there in the community. Phone lines, we get people coming into the office, emails, you know, you name it. We'll take a complaint anyway. Definitely happy to help out, and that's kind of the focus of our proactive approach to this. So we're currently assessing the program and looking to build a bit of a business case on staffing models. Right now, the business case calls for a CPO1 team lead, a CPO1 and a bylaw officer. So we're just assessing, is that the right model for our community? Is there maybe a better way that we could look at doing that based on stats and kind of the needs? So that's one of the things that we've got to assess. We don't even have really 6 months under our belts yet, so we want to get a good picture of what's actually happening out there before we commit to anything and make any decisions. Based on the direction from council, that was the proactive approach, and that's kind of how we've really taken this thing. And both officers have been extremely accommodating and helping us in making sure that that's actually happening. You know, Steve and myself are constantly kind of monitoring what's happening with it, and our officers are really good at what they do, and they are very much so that proactive focused approach. One of the officers the other day bought a gentleman that come on some hard times, took him and bought him lunch, took him out for lunch, right? So those things go a long ways, and just, you know, trying to be human, right? Take the officer piece out of it, trying to be human. So a couple of the stats that I'll talk about here for 2022. So currently to date, and this is back the start of May. Steve's maybe got the more updated. So we've done a total of 205 complaints. So that would be from report of concern, walk-ins, emails, or through our dispatch center. And then officer generated. So these are what we call our proactive files. To date is 221. The numbers you see are probably a little bit different, but those are the ones as of today. So those proactive ones are the officers driving around, seeing an unsightly property, seeing something laying around, creating a file and following up on it. And again, just kind of proactive speed patrols, setting up speed spies, those sorts of things. So year to date, we're sitting at 426 total files for our department year to date. Some stats from prior, in 2021, there was 117 files, basically from January 1st to May 1st. 2020 was January 1st to May 1st was 138. And same time frame in 2019 was 164. So again, being out there, being on the street, trying to get on top of some of this stuff before it becomes an issue. We've had really, really good success and really good feedback from people when the officers go there and say, hey, why are you knocking on my door about my unsightly property? Did my neighbor call again? And it's like, actually, sir, no, we drove by and we seen it. And it's helping to kind of reduce the tension maybe between neighbors and things like that. So we're seeing a pretty good reaction, a pretty positive result from that. Year to date, which is unheard of, is 8 dogs have been taken to Heaven Can Wait. So in years past, Austin worked for the county, our CPO1 team lead, and he was here for 2 years and didn't handle it. I think he said it didn't do a dog. and he's done 8 so far this year between the two of them, dogs at large. We do monitor the High River Rant and Rave Facebook page, because quite often people will put their dogs on there, that their dog's running around or lost. So the guys do when they're working, monitor that page just to see if they can maybe find the dog or help people out. Also, we've managed to deal with a porcupine and a pig and a few other animals, to say the least. So it's been entertaining anyways. We are monitoring, again, speeds around the community. So we have 1 speed spy. We just got another one back. So we have 2 speed spies and a speed trailer. You probably won't know when it's out, but it is being placed around the community, and we're sharing those results with RCMP, Citizens on Patrol, and ourselves. And the idea is to gather the data and the stats to find out really where is enforcement needed, right? As opposed to just plunking somewhere where there's no speeding concerns. Let's focus on where those concerns are by the data off the speed spy. The speed spy gives us vehicle counts, time of day. It gives us the high speed, low speed, average speed, how many over a certain threshold we can program into it. So it gives us a pretty good snapshot of what's happening in those areas. We do have areas where people are concerned about speed, and when we put the speed spy up there, it's soon realized that probably it isn't that bad, but it's maybe a perception thing on the road being narrow or something like that that may make it look like somebody's going way faster than they actually are. But we're pulling that data and kind of putting all that together so we can come up with a really solid plan on how to engage and try and take care of our concerns that we have out there. We've been working really closely with our communications department. We're in the process, the mayor just did a little short video snippet for us, but we're in the process of building on a video series. With that video series, we'll be tying in all protective services, so fire, bylaw, and emergency management, and doing a lot of public kind of education engagement pieces with those to get some of this information out, so that people really understand what's out there and what we're doing and some of the things, right? And then we're also working with some of the communities surrounding us to create some memorandums of understanding. So in the event that Nanton has an officer that's sick on long term, we may be able to provide some support down there, or vice versa, under some memorandums of understanding. Given that the peace officer world is very regulated, we have to have those to be able to operate in those areas. So having those would be critical for us and for them to kind of work as community partners. So there's a few communities around that are interested in having those just in case agreements in place, so should we ever need them. And so we're kind of at the point now where things are up and running. We're in the process of building out the job description for the other community peace officer level 1, which is approved in the budget already, and getting that hired and getting that sorted out. So lots of things are on the go for us, but it's so far it's been pretty good, and we're pretty happy with the success of the program so far. So certainly welcome any comments or questions from Mayor and Council.
Thanks, Cody. Great report, and I'll look into the positive, so well done by yourself and Steve. The proactive approach, there's no question we're already seeing the results of that, rather than waiting for complaints to come in before we do anything about it. So kudos to everybody in Austin, and Brett, right? Met him the other day, so fantastic team. Council questions. Councillor Kinghorn first, please.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Yeah, to reiterate the mayor's comments, you guys have been doing a great job, but my question is around the Heaven Can Wait. We had 8 dogs going out there. Can you just refresh my memory on how that works with Kim out there? Do we pay her a flat fee, or how does that all go together, and for new council as well? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is an agreement or a contract with them that is a flat fee. So whether we take 1 dog out there or 100 dogs out there, there is a flat fee. And that is something that I think we need to look at is that the best thing for the town, or is there another option? So I think it'll be working closely with Kim. She is a huge resource to us when it comes to, otherwise we're housing the animals and what do we do with them, right? So right now it is a flat fee that we pay them on an annual basis, 0 dogs or 100 dogs.
Councillor Nychuk.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. The speed stuff, when you get the data, can you share it? Just be interested
Absolutely.
to see where and what and how much, and
Absolutely.
or if any, because you're saying some perception is that there's speeders and there's not. So just be interesting to have. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly we can do that.
No further questions from council. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Didn't even have to swat my mic. The next item, 4.3, is the coal policy discussion, so I'll be speaking to this one. So this afternoon in the regular meeting of council, I'm going to be bringing forward, and I just sent council the final draft of this document, being the coal policy for Alberta 2022 and beyond. So this is a document that was produced by grassroots-based coalition of Indigenous and ranchers, landowners, environmentalists, scientists, policy experts, with David Luff that was involved in creating this. And what it does, where it came from, is it's definitely spurred on by the Town of High River's resolution last year with our coal policy, our coal restriction policy, that we brought forward and sent out to municipalities to get everybody to sign on. And then we presented that to the Coal Policy Committee led by Ron Wallace last year when they were doing the public engagement. And then from there, everything went over to, that report went to the Minister of Energy, being Sonia Savage. Minister Savage made her ministerial orders that kind of put a hold on everything, and the plan was that she has put a hold on development and exploration, and no further permits or anything will be issued right now until all this land use planning stuff has been developed, which will take a very, very long time. But what we realize is there are a number of things that need to go into place, especially after the public feedback that the Coal Policy Committee gathered, which was 85 to 90% of Albertans do not want any further coal mining taking place on our eastern slopes. So that's why they just took our motion, being putting an end to coal mining on our eastern slopes, and put it into a much larger document and much more broad, I guess, with coal mining in Alberta and where we're headed in this province. So I just brought it into committee of the whole just to see if there was any questions from council, and then from there I'll be bringing a motion forward in the regular council meeting that just asks the Town of High River to endorse this document, as well as send it out to all municipalities and First Nations groups throughout Alberta and Saskatchewan. That's what we did with our previous one last year. And just asking them to endorse it and come on board with us. From there, what it's really going to do is be pressured into the next provincial election, because nothing else is really going to happen until, nothing's going to happen with this government with the changes from last change, or not a change, last week. And figuring out, this is all moving into the next election. The next government that's elected will be dealing with this stuff. So that's where we're at. It'll be on the table this afternoon, but if there's any questions that council has before we stop it here, then we'll move forward. Councillor Kinghorn.
Lots of buttons to push. Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. So, having us just received it, have you had a chance to review it, and could we have some of your comments on it then? I haven't had a chance to read it. And
Yeah, no, it's identical to the draft that I sent to you guys a couple of weeks ago. The only thing that's been changed is the watermark draft has been removed, and because we delayed the release of this thing for a week or so, some dates I think have changed in there, but the core of the document is still there. But there's The thing that I love about this is it could be a government policy that you can actually read and understand. It's very, very well written. It's been through, there's been a number of lawyers involved in this, and David Luff, who was part of the Lougheed government's implementation of the 76 coal policy, he was part of finalizing these drafts. So it's all written in the proper way, and there's a lot of history on coal mining in Alberta and where things are moving into the future, where there's not the demand for coal that some of the proponents say there is, right? So there's a lot of that in there, but primarily page 8 is a big one to read, because that gives you a look at the economics of it, whether it's the royalties that are pretty pathetic out of coal mining. It's actually quite embarrassing that that's all we've been doing, as well as the low number of jobs that are actually involved with coal mining. That's all explained on page 8. And then pages 23 and 24 have the actual policy direction, where it takes it through what the Minister of Energy can actually do, further than what Sonia did, as much as she possibly could to get support to get this thing put to bed with this government. So she did a phenomenal job, and she took a lot of risks and stuck her neck out there for the right reasons for this province. So she got a lot done, but this just takes it to the next steps that are a little bit further.
So it is identical then to the draft?
Correct.
Okay, great.
Yes.
I've read the draft. It was
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
Yeah. No further questions? We'll move on to the next one. I'll bring this into the regular council meeting. Thank you. Chris with High Country Drive lights.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. As council was aware, Mayor Snodgrass circulated a letter from Highwood Golf Course a couple weeks ago in regards to an incident at the intersection along High Country Drive where the golf carts cross. Their request in that letter was to put pedestrian-controlled lights on that location in order to reduce the impact for any collisions. And so we wanted to bring that letter forward for information to council and start talking about what potential action should be implemented within that intersection from that perspective. It has come up a couple times. Earlier this spring, Mayor Snodgrass had asked for us to prepare some plans for the 2023 budget to take a look at changing the intersection alignment and design there with raised crosswalks and different traffic calming measures. And that may be something that we need to take a look at and take this letter into consideration as part of that process. But they are requesting specific lights, so we do have to respond to them in some form, and we wanted to have that in this public forum in the committee of the whole structure to have that conversation. Thank you.
So in regards to the lights, Chris, what would the cost be to put up lights, as we've done at a number of other intersections over on Riverside Drive when we did the mailbox crossings and stuff? Yeah, here comes Riley. There we go. Don't under budget this one.
100 grand. I have to use the headset too? This?
Yep.
Hello?
Just speak louder.
I'm good, Bruce?
Bruce is good. Right on.
Can you turn on the video?
I should have stayed at my desk. You cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Oh,
Your fault.
can you do it now? Thank you.
So, cost of lights, to put it that,
Don't quote me on this one.
No, I
And I
won't.
guess I'm going to caveat this with a statement first. We are talking golf carts crossing a road. those aren't pedestrians. And so I'm not sure we could just use something as simple as pedestrian lights, given that we are dealing with almost a motorized vehicle. So I think that there needs to be some investigation into that. I've never actually had to do this before, but I know there is considerations when you are getting into that. So I'll caveat all my numbers with the fact that I'm not even sure we could just do lights. I think we may have to look at something a bit more enhanced to accommodate the golf carts. Pedestrian lights on their own, mind you, the pricing's kind of old. When you do the solar ones that are kind of off to the side, I think they were costing that 6 to 10 grand a couple years ago. So we're 10 or 15 now. When you get into overhead lights with power services and the steel, you're 100-ish thousand on something like that. So we probably need to do a bit of investigation with regards to the golf carts themselves and how they need to be treated under Traffic Safety Act, and then look at the configuration itself, because the golf cart crossing is actually offset from the intersection just slightly, just enough to make it a real challenge for that crossing and a little bit awkward. And so is there something we can do with the alignment to help that as well? So we probably need to do some investigation into that first.
No, and that's fair, but we'll remember there's absolutely nothing there right now. So as far as the Traffic Act, if there is something there, we're not meeting it today, right? So
There's a good chance.
Anything would be an
yes.
improvement. And you're absolutely right on that intersection. What it actually needs, and I agree with Chris and I talked about this before, what that intersection actually needs to be safe is a complete redesign.
I agree.
With
yes.
bump outs, because those lights are set so far back, we would have to go over top, because we all know that there's vehicles that'll park right there that'll block out those other lights anyways, right?
Correct.
If we just did pedestrian.
Especially with the offset of that crossing, it would push the poles that far.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're that far back,
And the
right?
road's so wide.
Yeah, it'd be better than nothing like we have now, but I think we need to do this. If we're going to do it and put the money to it, we need to do it right and do it properly. So
Yeah, you probably need to do some reconfiguration just to get everything to line up.
But when we get into doing bump outs and those kinds of things, well, now the dollar figure keeps going up, right? So
Significantly.
but if we're doing overheads and you got to get power to it and everything else, and you're tearing that all up, you might as well do a proper redesign of the intersection at that time. So, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I would like to mention too, because I do live very close to that space, it is a pedestrian crosswalk as well for dock walkers, for golfers who are walking, and it's also a bus stop in the morning. So you have a heightened security in the morning, especially when the sun is blinding as you're coming towards the east, and it's a blind corner if you're coming from the east heading west. So I do think that it is, as you're coming around that corner, you can just see it as the intersection opens up. So I do think that there is a need, a great need because there's so many things happening there at certain times of day. And with the pedestrian golfers and then the folks on carts as an added measure, right? So there's a lot happening in that intersection that does need some additional attention. However we choose to draw attention to it, it needs it. And people start to speed up too. From the time you hit the four-way stop by the golf course, as you're coming around that corner, they do start to speed up.
They're flying, yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Nychuk.
Just to lend, I guess, a comment. The bump outs, I like that idea because Councillor Smith mentioned the cutting of the corner coming east to west. I mean, in the winter, you'll see people that are up on the sidewalk. They cut that corner so much, which is just an indication of the speed that they're traveling. If they're cutting the corner like that, they're not taking the corner safely, in my opinion. As of late, the property owner on that corner, I believe, has, I think it's the property owner, I could be mistaken, but a large four-wheel drive truck, they park right there, and it acts as a bump out when that vehicle's around. And I think that's, yeah, so the bump out idea and the raised crossing makes better sense to me than lights. I don't know. Are golfers going to get out of a golf cart and push a button to get the lights? I'm thinking not, but so if you raise the intersection and you put a big bump out there, yeah, I think that's going to work best. And last question, pedestrians. So this is the golf course that brought this to us. Have we had recently or in the last number of years pedestrians that have also spoke to us about that crossing? Because to me, this is a golf course request so the carts can get across the street because they don't stop at the fence and read the sign that says yield to oncoming traffic. They just kind of like to go.
That's the written request that we received, but we also have had reporter concerns for pedestrians crossing there over the last 6 months of our reporter concern program.
Good.
So we've
Yeah.
had some of those issues too.
Thank you. Good that it's supported by the community rather than driven by a business enterprise.
That's correct.
So there's an immediate piece that we could do though, and that's just put speed bumps in a couple of places on either side of that. That doesn't cost a lot of money, but you had mentioned that. Chris loves a speed bump. Doesn't cost him any money, and it tears your tires off if you're doing 80K. Chris loves it. It's kind of like Bruce Masterman that way. Can't slow them down, then wreck their car. So can we look into doing something, maybe coming back for the next committee of the whole, just some few ideas of, immediate action that we can take, and then long-term fix?
Certainly, we can come back with some
deep
few cost-effective ideas that will try and slow traffic down. We'll also bring forward, as part of the budget process, looking at redesigning what that intersection may look like.
Perfect.
And we can also do some conceptual stuff.
Okay, sounds good. Councillor Walsh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My comment was similar to what others have, just any effort to slow the traffic down right there. It is, it's an issue right at that corner, but do we need a full set of lights at an extreme cost, or is a bump out, a bump up, a stop sign? Would be looking at addressing it as a whole, as the speed as well as safety for people crossing. The golf carts do not stop. They're highly unlikely to stop and push a button, so I think it's more a traffic issue than a golf course issue. So, but do we need lights, or do we need, as you say, a bump out and a stop sign maybe? Thank you.
Perfect. Councillor Kinghorn?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I'd suggest we also talk to the RCMP and get their opinion of golf carts traveling across public roads. There's been discussion about that. I was in a meeting about a week ago, and there was some discussion around that and the use of powered carts and motor carts and all that sort of stuff on public roads. So if we could get some input on that as well. Thank you.
Sounds good. No further questions. Move on to item 4.5, being the Goodman land purchase that we, this is the land on the north end of town that the Highwood River borders. And this is, we've gone back and forth with Mr. Goodman for, probably 6 years now, trying to purchase that property, but, and we went back just recently, as he had requested to revisit this, so we went back to him again with the previous agreement. He got back to, Chris and I were in a short conference call with Mr. Goodman today, and he says he's declined the offer, and so we're moving on. So we're going to take this one off our books, and it doesn't need to come back. So that one's done. Questions from council? Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I just was curious if we could have an update on our wayfaring signage, please. It's been a little while since we talked about it. I'd just be curious to know where we're at in the process, please.
Certainly, it is currently out for tender, closes June 9th, with completion of August 31st is the targeted date. And so we're waiting to see who actually bids. We have not, in our pre-exploration, we did not have a lot of interest, which was concerning, but now that it's tendered, we'll see what we get back.
Thank you.
I have no further questions, so meeting adjourned, 1:39 PM.
That was good.